Wasn't the biggest prog rock fan. I remember telling him once that I thought the opening riff to Yes's Long Distance Runaround was similar to many Allman Brothers twin lead harmony lines that I'd heard. And he kind of bristled at that. I tried to pin him down on why he was so down on progressive rock, and as you might expect, he had a lot to say. One of Butch's main criticisms, though, was that he saw it as pretentious, and I guess I can sort of understand where he was coming from. I personally find it very fun and easy to slip into the headspace of albums like Yes's Fragile or King Crimson's The Court of the Crimson King. But I completely understand why some folks might have a problem with the 10-minute songs of orchestrally arranged music where someone is singing about mountains coming out of the sky or summoning back the Fire Witch. I get it. And that might be why I had an immediate fondness for Gong when I first heard them.
While there are a number of different subgenres of progressive rock, there's only one that is grounded in a particular location, and that would be Canterbury, Kent, England. There's actually kind of an American influence in Canterbury by way of jazz. So imagine your favorite progressive rock with a healthy dose of jazz harmony. But don't stop there. Also, there's a big dose of whimsy, English humor. Imagine if you took a dash of Monty Python and stirred it in the pot with the jazz and the progressive rock. Now, there's a number of different bands that make up the Canterbury scene. So you're getting groups like Soft Machine, Caravan, National Health, Khan, Khan. And what do you know? Most of the guys that are in those bands all knew each other. And there's a lot of fraternization going on between these different groups. Gong was one of them, probably the most whimsical of them all, if that's possible.
You can tell just by reading the song titles. The Pothead Pixies, I Never Glid Before, Sold to the Highest Buddha. Plus, Gong's not afraid to get just a little bit funky, which is always good. My initial exposure to Gong was 20 or so years ago, when my friend Brooks gave me a compilation CD which included a few songs from Angel's Egg, with the standout for me being the tune Oily Way. That tune is such a trip. The verses are composed entirely of diminished chords, yet still manages to groove hard.
Then he'll point up in the sky, you can see the teapots fly.
After getting my own copy of Angel's Egg, I quickly completed the Radio Gnome Invisible trilogy by getting Flying Teapot and You. All three are amazing.
You know, some bands like Yes, yeah, they'd have a solo they might improvise, but they never tried to go to the moon and back. Then again, bands like Gong, that was what they were about. They were going to take you on a musical adventure, and it's one that is about improvisation. Steve's work with Gong exemplifies this. The 3 albums that he was part of, the trilogy, are some of Gong's best. Before that, they were even more whimsical. Like, I think they kind of sharpened their focus when Steve came along and made some of the most instrumentally satisfying records of their career.
I've also since heard Camembert Electrique and Magic Brother. Fun fact, you remember Sherman Hemsley, George Jefferson from the Jeffersons?
Get down!
Aside from being an actor, he was actually a decent jazz keyboardist. He even had a song on Soul Train once. But did you know he was also a big prog rock fan? True story. He had a room in his house dedicated to the album Flying Teapot, with the music playing on a loop constantly. Another fun fact, in 1972, Duane Allman's widow Donna and daughter Galadriel moved to Paris for a time. And while they were living there, they became friends with Gong and ended up touring with them for a while. Something I actually didn't know until I read Galadriel's book. It's called Please Be With Me, a song from my father, and you absolutely should read it. So where was I? Right. My knowledge of Steve Hillage is, to this point, entirely contained in those early Gong albums. And honestly, I don't know that I could tell you which guitar parts on those albums are played by Steve Hillage and which by David Allen. David
Allen, of course.
It's going to be fun for me to hear Steve Hillage solo and seeing if it helps me match the player to the playing for the Gong recordings I'm already familiar with. All right then, time for some Fish Rising.
Oh, fishy, 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 fish.
Okay, yes, I recognize Steve Hillage's guitar pretty much immediately. In fact, a lot of this album is very Gong-like. Gong-ish? Gong-esque? Gong-ese? It has a lot of the same tongue-in-cheek shenanigans of Flying Teapot and Angel's Egg, and a lot of the same Guitar and Winds vibe for a good portion of this album. Which I guess makes some sense, seeing as his band for this album consists almost entirely of Gong members. Gongers? Gongulans? Gongoranians? But to my ears, Steve Hillage is taking this music farther than anything I've heard from Gong. For example, the climax of that first song, Solar Music Suite, is a dead ringer for the intensity, density, and complexity of the Mahavishnu Orchestra, with one of the coolest riffs I've heard in a long, long time. Check this out. Cool, right? So let's find out what's actually happening there, because it's pretty cool. First off, here's the riff. It feels odd, doesn't it? It feels like it's in some weird compound meter with shifting bars of like 5 or 7 or something, but the whole thing is actually 3 bars of 4/4. Check it out. 2, 3, 4. How cool is that? The little interlude piece, Fish, it has the humor, the difficulty, and the pitch percussion madness of something by the Mothers of Invention as a feature for like Art Tripp or Ruth Underwood. But really what I want to talk to you about is the main riff in the Salmon song. It's an example of one of my favorite things in discovering new music. It's a dead simple riff, yet nobody ever thought of it before. I love finding those. I mean, check it out. How had nobody ever thought of that before, right? It's right there. I love that. Look, expounding upon the interestingness of the riffs is all well and good, but here's how I know Fish Rising is making a deep impact on me. It's one of the few albums I've encountered recently that I find myself playing for other people, in the car, at home doing dishes. I find myself wanting to share this music. That's a good sign. And now I get to spend a lot more time with this album. Let's see where this fish is going. Shall we?
And it went wherever I did go.
And now, a reading of selected passages from Steve Hillage's Fish Rising. Angel of the Rainbow was watching us to see if we were ready to be a color in his harmony. We've got to learn to use our hearts and minds as the building stones to make a new age electric temple. The salmon swimming up the stream of time, leaping up the falls of man to the source of love and light. Salty salmon, Solomon's seal, soul mender, salamander, soul of man. King of the fishes, the petals of the 7 open lotuses on the tree of life, the sacred sea. Whoa. Okay, I think we better stop there. Things were about to get hydraulic. So maybe I need to take back at least part of what I said about this album's lack of pretension. Only part though, because through all the stoner fish philosophy and semi-spiritual imagery that appears on Fish Rising's 3 vocal tracks, this album never loses its sense of playfulness. And I do like that. Fish Rising is such a trip. Steve Hillage's guitar work is inspiring, Flashy at times, but always solid, grounded, and playful. The songs are clever, but not precious, and they're still memorable. The instrumentation and the arrangements, they range from, wow, that's really beautiful, to, holy spawning season, Batman, that was incredible, to, wait, is that a bassoon?
And if you enjoyed today's selection of Fish Rising, I highly suggest his next record as well. It is called L. This was done in Woodstock, New York, and it was produced by Todd Rundgren. And after that, I suggest one called Motivation Radio. If you like what's going on Fish Rising, check out the next few records.
But most important to me, Fish Rising is going on the very, very short list of albums that I've discovered for this series that I will start actively sharing with my friends and colleagues. Fish Rising by Steve Hillage, Scraps by NRBQ. End of list. I don't know that I have that much more to say about it. It's good music. I had a good time. Listen to it. Fish!
That was terrific!
Great! Yeah! Best face! Fantastic! Yeah, it's really great! Really pisky, yeah.
This is awesome.